the most expensive thing your outboard will ever touch isn't a rock or bad gas. It's salt water, and the worst part is you can't even see it doing the damage. Salt works its way into the cooling passages, the bracket, the prop, the wiring, and then it just sits there eating your engine alive, all day, all night, whether you're running the boat or it's parked in the driveway. I've seen guys with a perfectly good engine, low hours, who suddenly need a power head that runs $3,000 to $4,000, way before that motor should have ever worn out. Why? Salt. They skipped the easy stuff. And the thing that drives me crazy is that all of it, every bit of that damage, is preventable in about 15 minutes with a garden hose. The catch is that most people only do about half of what they should. And it's almost always the cheap, quick half they skip that ends up costing them thousands. So let me walk you through the 8 things to do after every saltwater trip. The way I'd tell a friend over the back of the truck, with what it actually costs you when you don't. Number 1, flush the motor, but do it right. You already know you're supposed to flush. Everybody knows that part. But here's what most people get wrong. Do it soon after you get back while the engine's still a little warm, not the next morning. And here's why that matters in plain terms. When the salt water is still warm and wet, the salt is dissolved in it, and fresh water rinses it right out. But if you let it sit overnight, that salt dries into little crystals stuck inside the cooling passages, kind of like how salt cakes up around the rim of a margarita glass. Now your hose water has to dissolve all that dried salt again, and it never quite gets all of it. So hook up to the flush port or slap the muffs on the lower unit and let it run a full 5 minutes. Not 2. I know 2 feels like enough, but it isn't. The water needs time to work through the whole system. And ignore that old myth that you'll shock a warm engine by flushing it. Your outboard runs around 140 degrees. That's nowhere near hot enough to crack anything. That scare story comes from car radiators that hit over 200, totally different animal. Skip this step over and over and salt builds up until your engine runs hot. And an overheat is exactly how a free 15-minute job becomes that $3,000 power head I mentioned. Number 2, rinse the whole engine, not just the inside. People flush the cooling system and figure they're done, but flushing only cleans the inside. The outside of that motor just spent your whole trip getting sprayed with salt, and now it's coated in it. So, rinse the whole thing down. The big cover, the power head, and then the spots nobody bothers with. The bracket where the motor bolts to the boat, and those shiny silver trim rods down low. Those shiny rods are the ones to care about. They're called trim rams, and they're polished, smooth steel. When salt sits on them and pits them, they start leaking the hydraulic fluid that tilts your motor up and down, and fixing that is not a cheap afternoon. Drop the engine all the way down before you rinse the cover so water runs off instead of pooling in the seams. 2 extra minutes on the bracket and those rods is the difference between trim that just works for 15 years and a system that's weeping fluid by year 5. That's the easy 2. The next one is the step almost nobody does, and it's the kind of thing you only learn about after it's already bitten you. Number 3, wash out the prop hub and leave the prop down. This one's a little secret that separates the people who baby their gear from the people who end up fighting it in the driveway swearing. Salt builds up inside the propeller hub. That's the spot where the prop slides onto the shaft. Over a season, that salt can pack in there so hard it basically welds the prop onto the shaft. Then one day you get fishing line wrapped behind the prop, or you ding a blade and need to swap it, and the thing will not come off. Now you're heating it, beating it with a puller, or hauling it to a shop. So when you rinse, aim some water right at that prop hub, and leave the motor trimmed down so water drains out instead of getting trapped up inside. And a couple times a season, pull the prop off, wipe the shaft, and smear a little marine grease on it. Costs you a few dollars of grease and 5 minutes, and that prop will always slide right off when you need it to. One guy on a boating forum put it perfectly. He said his lower unit froze onto the engine from letting salt sit too long, and then asked, and I'm quoting him, "Ask me how I know. Don't be that guy." Number 4, watch the pee stream every single time you flush. You know that little stream of water that squirts out the side of your motor when it's running? Boaters call it the telltale, or just the pee stream. That little dribble is the cheapest mechanic you'll ever have, and almost nobody actually looks at it. While you're flushing, just watch it. A strong, steady stream means your water pump is healthy and everything's flowing. A weak, spitting on and off stream is your engine straight up telling you the water pump impeller is wearing out, or salt is clogging things up. And it's telling you that weeks before it would ever leave you stranded. Here's why that's worth real money, and these are real numbers. The impeller, that little rubber pump part, costs about $15 to $50. A shop will swap it for somewhere around a couple $100 if you don't do it yourself. But if that impeller lets go while you're running wide open offshore and you don't catch it, your engine overheats and you're back to a power head that runs $3,000 and up. There's a saying mechanics love, and it's dead on. A $50 impeller beats a $3,000 power head. That P stream is your early warning light. Look at it every time, and the second it looks weak, deal with it. We're halfway. The next two are about stopping the kind of rot you can't see. And this is where the real invisible money gets saved. Number 5, look at your anodes and rinse them off. Your motor has these little dull gray metal blocks bolted onto it. Some folks call them zincs. Their whole job in life is to rot so the rest of your engine doesn't. I'll keep the science simple. Saltwater creates a kind of slow electrical reaction that eats metal, and those blocks are made of a metal that gets eaten first. They throw themselves on the grenade so your expensive gear case and power head survive. That's literally why they're called sacrificial anodes. 2 things stop them from working. 1, they get eaten down to nothing, and once one's about half gone, you replace it. 2, and this is the part people miss, they get caked over with salt or grime, or somebody paints over them, and a coated anode can't do its job at all. So every time you rinse, glance at them and give them a quick scrub with a brush. Never paint them. Here's the money math. A new anode costs you about $10 to $30. The gear case it's protecting? That's a couple thousand. This is the cheapest insurance on the entire engine. And because you can't see it working, it's the first thing everybody forgets. Right up until the corrosion moves on to the parts that cost real money. Number 6, hit the inside with a corrosion spray. Once everything's rinsed and starting to dry, pop the cover off the top of the engine and give the inside a light misting of a marine corrosion spray. The water displacing kind, something like Corrosion X or a similar can from any marine store, runs you about $15 or $20 and lasts forever. It does 2 jobs. It chases the last little bits of moisture out of your electrical connections, and it leaves a thin protective film that salty air can't get through as easy. Spray the throttle and shift linkages, the cables, the battery connections, and any electrical plugs you can see. Here's why I push this one harder than it sounds. Most modern outboard headaches aren't broken metal, they're electrical gremlins. A corroded connector or a crusty green ground wire gives you hard starting, random fault codes, and weird problems that a mechanic can burn 2 or 3 hours just chasing down at over $100 an hour. A few seconds of spray on those connections after a salt trip stops the exact corrosion that turns into a maddening, expensive electrical mystery 2 summers from now. Let it sit, don't rinse it off, close it back up. 2 left, and the next one is the one mechanics actually argue about. So let me give you both sides straight. Number 7, decide on a salt remover, and here's the honest truth about it. This is where good people disagree, so I won't pretend it's settled. You've seen the bottles, salt away and stuff like that. You hook it to your hose and it mixes in while you flush, and it's made to dissolve and lift out salt that plain water leaves behind. Now, plenty of mechanics will tell you it's a waste of money if you just flush long enough with plain fresh water. And plenty of owners swear they'll never skip it. Honestly, they can both be right, and it depends on how you use your boat. Here's the real-world case for using it. Straight from owners, not the label. A bunch of guys report that without a salt remover, the little check valves on their flush lines slowly get gummed up with salt and start sticking open. And then the engine starts peeing out of holes it's not supposed to. The salt remover keeps those tiny passages clean. So here's my honest take. If you're pounding salt all season, every weekend, a bottle of salt remover every few flushes is cheap insurance. And it runs maybe $20 for a jug that lasts a long time. But if you're mostly a freshwater guy who hits the salt a few times a year, a good long plain water flush is genuinely fine. And you don't need to feel guilty about skipping the bottle. Match it to how much salt you're actually running. It's a tool, not a rule. Number 8, dry it off and put it away nose down. Last one, and it's about not undoing all the good work you just did. Give the engine a wipe down so it's not sitting there soaking wet, because standing water plus leftover salt is exactly what kicks off that surface rust. Then, and this matters, store the motor trimmed all the way down, not tilted up. I know everybody tilts it up out of habit, but down lets all the water drain out of the cooling passages and the prop hub. Tilted up traps a pocket of water inside the lower unit and the exhaust. And that trapped salt water just sits there working against you the whole time the boat's parked. And while you're down there, take 10 seconds to peek at your lower unit oil if your motor lets you. If it looks milky, like coffee with too much creamer, that means water's sneaking past a seal. Caught early, a leaking seal is a cheap fix. A couple $100. Caught late, salt water's been grinding around inside your gears, and now you're looking at a gear case rebuild that runs well over $1,000. Then you're done. Wipe, drain, peek, walk away. Now look, none of this is hard. There's not a single thing on this list that needs more than a garden hose, a set of muffs, and a cheap can of spray. The reason saltwater quietly murders so many outboards isn't that the fix is complicated. It's that the damage is invisible and slow. So skipping a step never seems to hurt anything, right up until the day the bill lands on your lap. The guys whose motors run strong for 15, 20 years aren't the ones with the fanciest boats. They're the ones standing at the dock with a hose for 15 minutes while everybody else already drove home. So do the whole list, not half of it. Especially the 3 nobody bothers with: the prop hub, the anodes, and the corrosion spray. Because those are the ones quietly saving you thousands. Salt doesn't take a day off, not one. That 15 minutes after each trip is the cheapest money you will ever spend on your engine. And the day it really matters is the day you'll be real glad you never got lazy about it.